The day my boss's fiancé put his 6-year-old daughter in a coma, I can't say I was surprised. Shocked, yes. Heartbroken, absolutely. But surprised, not after everything I'd watched in that house. The missed meals, the ripped-up toys, the little girl who apologized for existing, while everyone told me I was overreacting. So let me ask you right at the start, if you saw a child being broken in front of you, and nobody believed you, because you were just the maid, how far would you go to save her? My name is Sophia. I was hired to clean floors and cook meals in a rich man's house, and somehow I ended up being the only person standing between his little girl and the woman he was about to marry. This isn't a movie script. Nobody here is perfect, including me. I just couldn't stay quiet while a 6-year-old learned to be afraid in her own home. Picture the house for a second. Huge glass doors that open with a whisper marble floors that echo if you breathe too loud, chandeliers dripping crystals art on the walls that probably cost more than my car. It smelled like expensive candles and fresh flowers. People would drive by and say, "Must be nice." But what I noticed most wasn't the furniture. It was the silence. For a house with a kid in it, it was way too quiet. Her name was Elizabeth. The first time I met her, she was in the kitchen doorway, hugging a stuffed rabbit by one ear, wearing a slightly crooked pink dress and socks that didn't match. She studied me for a second, and then asked very seriously, "Do you know how to make pancakes in shapes?" "Stars, hearts, dinosaurs," I said. "Whatever you want." She smiled, small and careful, like she was testing if it was allowed. After that, she followed me everywhere. On paper, I was the maid, but in reality, I became the one who woke her up, brushed her hair, listened when she missed her mom, read bedtime stories, when the house felt too big and too dark. Her mom wasn't around because she'd died. Cancer fast and brutal. Her dad, Richard Walker, was one of those men people admire from far away. Business articles, sharp suits, always on the phone. But underneath it all, he was just a widower who couldn't stand being in a house full of memories. He threw himself into work because being at the office hurt less than seeing his wife's picture on the nightstand. For a while, we built a sort of fragile peace. Mornings with rushed breakfasts, afternoons with homework at the kitchen table, evenings with Elizabeth whispering, "Do you think Mommy can see me?" and me saying yes, because I couldn't bear to take that comfort away. When Richard was home, he'd kiss her on the head, thank me for holding everything together, then disappear back into emails and conference calls. Then grief walked in wearing heels. Her name was Victoria. The first time she came over, I heard the heels before I saw her. Then came the perfume. Then the woman. Tall, polished black dress, careful makeup, a jewelry that quietly screamed money. She held out her hand to me and said, "You must be Sophia. Richard says he doesn't know what he'd do without you." It sounded warm. Felt like she was sizing me up. In front of Richard, she was thoughtful, patient, understanding. She listened while he talked about his wife, said things like, "I'd never try to replace her, and I just want to help you both heal." She knelt down to talk to Elizabeth, brought small gifts, asked about school. If you only saw those moments, you'd say, "Wow, he found a good one." Honestly, at first, I hoped he had. I thought maybe this would be good for them. A fresh start. Another adult in the house who could care about Elizabeth. But people like Victoria know how to perform. They know when to smile and when to soften their voice, and they also know exactly who they don't have to impress. I was staff. Useful, but not important. The mask slipped over a spilled glass of orange juice. It was a normal school morning. Elizabeth was sitting at the table half awake, holding her rabbit with one hand and a glass of juice with the other. I turned away for 1 second to grab her lunchbox and heard the crash. Juice all over the white carpet. She jumped like she'd set something on fire. "I'm sorry." I'm sorry, she whispered, scrambling for napkins. It's okay, I said, already grabbing a towel. It's just juice. I'll clean it. That's when I heard the heels. Victoria came to the doorway, saw the stain, then saw Elizabeth. Who did that? She asked, voice calm but cold. I spilled it. Elizabeth stammered. I didn't mean to. I'll clean it, I'm sorry. Victoria walked over and knelt in front of her, smiling a tight little smile. Your father works very hard to give you this beautiful home, she said softly. And you destroy it, because you can't hold a glass no dinner tonight. Maybe next time you'll be more careful. I felt my stomach drop. She's 6, I said. It was an accident. The carpet will be fine. I can fix it. Victoria turned that smile on me. Did I ask for your opinion? She said quietly. You clean. I parent. Don't confuse the two. If that had been a one-time thing, we could call it a bad moment. It wasn't. It was the beginning. No dessert because you pouted when I told you no. No cartoons because you cried again when you saw your mother's picture, and that's manipulation. No snacks because I've told you we don't eat between meals. Each little mistake turned into a punishment always delivered in that reasonable tone that sounds so normal to outsiders. And when Richard was home, none of it existed. As soon as his car pulled in, Victoria changed. We baked today. Didn't we, sweetheart? Show Daddy the drawing you made. She'd sit close to him, stroke Elizabeth's hair, talk about how challenging but rewarding it was to help a grieving child. He saw a woman investing in his daughter. I saw a woman practicing a role. He never saw the way Elizabeth tensed when she heard heels in the hallway. He never saw her hide drawings that included her mom stuffing them in drawers so Victoria wouldn't rip them up. He never heard her whisper, "Is she mad today?" at the doorway. The castle project is what finally made me say, enough. Elizabeth had to build a paper castle for school. For 2 weeks, she cut cardboard drew windows, colored flags, glued towers. She drew a tiny girl in one of the windows and said, "That's me and Mommy. We're waving at Daddy to come home." When she finished, she held it up like a trophy. "Do you think my teacher will like it?" she asked. "She'll love it," I told her. "You should be proud." The next night, I walked into her room and froze. Paper everywhere. The castle torn apart, towers ripped, the little girl in the window shredded down the middle. Elizabeth sat on the bed, hugging her rabbit eyes swollen. "What happened?" I asked, picking up a torn piece. "She said it was ugly," Elizabeth whispered. Who I asked, though, I already knew. "Victoria," she said. "She came in after Daddy went to sleep. She said my teacher would laugh at me if I brought it. She said I was embarrassing. Then she just started tearing it. When I cried, she told me to stop being a baby. I asked if she'd told her dad. She panicked. She said if I tell Daddy anything, she'll throw away all my toys," Elizabeth said. "She said Daddy loves her more now. She said he'll believe her, not me." That was it. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about control. About making sure the one person who could stop her never got the full truth. So I started documenting. I took pictures of broken toys, empty plates, notes Elizabeth wrote for herself. I wrote down dates, times, exact words. And one day when I heard Victoria making Elizabeth recite rules in the kitchen, I hit record on my phone from the hallway. I will not make noise when Daddy is working. I will not ask for snacks between meals. I will not cry like a baby. I will not bother Victoria when she is busy. I will be a good girl, or Daddy will be disappointed in me. If you had that recording, would you stay quiet to protect your job? Or would you risk everything? Be honest with yourself for a second. I tried going to Richard. He was out of town, so I called. It went to voicemail. "Sir, it's Sophia," I said. "Please call me back. It's about Elizabeth." "It's serious." He texted instead. "In a meeting. If this is about Victoria and Elizabeth not getting along, they just need time. Everything will be fine." Don't worry. Don't worry. While his daughter memorized rules about not crying. I tried in person when he got home. Sir, can we talk privately about your daughter? I asked more than once. Sophia, not now, he'd say. I'm exhausted. We'll talk later. We never did. Meanwhile, Victoria was already running her version of the story. One night I walked past his study and heard her say, I think Sophia's jealous. She talked about how I'd been like a second mother since his wife died, and how some people create problems when they feel replaced. By the time I finally walked in with my phone in my hand, I was already the jealous maid in his head. Sir, please, I said. I need 5 minutes. It's about Elizabeth. I have a video you need to see. Victoria immediately jumped in. Richard, this is what I was telling you about, she said. She's recording your daughter without permission, feeding her ideas. This is getting unhealthy. I didn't put anything in her head, I said. She's scared, and she thinks you won't believe her. Just watch the video, and then decide. Richard's face shut down. Sophia, I appreciate everything you've done, he said, but you're crossing a line. Recording my child accusing my fiancée of abuse, trying to turn me against her. That's not your place. With respect, I said, voice shaking. Your daughter is being emotionally abused in your home. If it's not my place to say something when I see that, then what is my place here? I'm not going to watch a video you made after you've been telling Elizabeth Victoria doesn't like her. He snapped. She's vulnerable. You could have influenced what she said. That's not evidence, that's manipulation. That word hit hard. Manipulation. I'm trying to protect her, I said. Someone has to. Victoria touched his arm like it was hers. Maybe Sophia needs some time away, she said gently. We're all under a lot of stress. Maybe some distance would help. He nodded. Go to your room, Sophia, he said. We'll discuss your job in the morning. And from now on, your duties are housework only. No more private talks with Elizabeth, understood? I went to my room feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. A little later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop interfering. Last warning. The next morning, Victoria walked into the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Silk robe. Perfect hair. Richard left early, she said. He asked me to talk to you about your future here. I just want to do my job. And look after Elizabeth, I said. That's the issue, she replied. You think looking after Elizabeth is your job? It's not. I'm going to be her mother. Your staff. You had your moment playing hero. It's over. She needs someone who loves her, I said quietly. Not someone who makes her feel like she ruins everything. Her smile disappeared. I will ruin you, she said calmly. I'll tell people you stole from us. I'll say you were inappropriate with Elizabeth. You will never work in this city again. And while you're busy trying to defend yourself, I'll still be here. So pack your things. You're done tonight. And if you show that video to anyone, I'll see you in court. That's when I knew I couldn't leave this in the family. There was no family to appeal to. Upstairs, I found Elizabeth in the hallway, eyes red. Are you leaving? She asked, without even saying hello. Victoria said you'd be gone. She said it's because of me. None of this is because of you, I said. But I might have to go. And that's why I need you to be brave today. Her eyes filled. If you go, I'll be alone with her, she whispered. Why doesn't Daddy stop her if he loves me? If it were you, what would you say? I told her the only honest thing I could, that sometimes grown-ups refuse to see what's right in front of them, and that it's wrong. But it's not her fault. On the way to school, I told her, today I need you to tell Miss Sarah the truth. About the food, the toys, the things she says about you and your mom. Victoria said, if I tell anyone, she'll throw away my toys, and Daddy will send you away. She said, she's already trying to send me away, I replied. This isn't about me anymore. Your teacher's job is to keep you safe. Tell her. Even if you're scared. She hesitated, then nodded. At the classroom door, she squeezed my hand and whispered, Will you still be here when I come back? I don't know, I said. But no matter where I am, I'm going to try to help you. Inside, Miss Sarah greeted her. Elizabeth looked at me, then at her teacher and said, "Can I talk to you alone?" I saw the teacher's face change. She nodded and shot me a look that said she understood this was serious. A few hours later, Child Protective Services called. A woman named Jane met me at a coffee shop, turned on a recorder and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I showed her the photos, the videos. She didn't roll her eyes. She called it abuse. She told me she was going straight to the school to talk to Elizabeth, then calling Richard in. She asked about relatives, wrote down his sister Margaret's name, and told me not to go back to the house, so Victoria wouldn't sense what was happening. On the way home, my phone buzzed. "Where are you?" "Get back here now," Victoria texted. I ignored it. The next message said, "Don't ignore me." The third one said, "You're fired. Don't come back. I'll send your things." My first thought wasn't about my job. It was, what if she drives straight to the school? I left Jane a voicemail, then parked across the street from the school. I watched Jane arrive. Then Richard driving too fast. 10 minutes later, Victoria's car screeched into the lot. She marched into that building like she owned it. That meeting in the principal's office was the turning point. Jane later told me all the details. She played the recordings for Richard, showed him the photos, went over Elizabeth's statements. He watched his daughter reciting those rules, heard his fiancée talking about her like she was a burden. You could see his denial crack. Victoria barged in, halfway through crying, saying I had manipulated Elizabeth, that this was all some jealous plot. But it wasn't just her word against mine anymore. It was her word against his daughter's face on a screen. For the first time, he chose to believe his child. He told Victoria to get out, not just of the office, but out of the house and out of their lives. You'd think that would be the end. Bad person exposed, child believed, crazy maid vindicated. Right, stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. When Richard walked out of the school, he was carrying Elizabeth. She clung to him like he was the only thing holding her to the earth. I watched from my car. Later, Jane called to tell me he'd asked for me back in the house, not as a cleaner, but as Elizabeth's nanny, because she'd asked for me. Back at the house, Elizabeth ran into my arms and refused to let go. Richard, puffy-eyed and exhausted, apologized for doubting me, for doubting his own child. He talked about grief, about how Victoria had been a convenient distraction, about how he'd chosen what felt easy over what was true. He didn't excuse himself. He just admitted he'd failed and asked me to help him do better. So I stayed. Not for him, for her. For a while, it felt like we were finally moving toward healing. There was a restraining order. Victoria moved out. Richard actually showed up. Elizabeth started therapy. She laughed again sometimes. She ate without asking for permission every bite. But people like Victoria don't always leave quietly. There was an anonymous CPS call accusing Richard of neglect. Jane came, saw the reality, and shut it down. Someone slashed his car tires. The school reported that a woman claiming to be an aunt tried to pick Elizabeth up. Cameras outside the house caught a familiar car parked down the street. A familiar figure standing at the gate in the dark, just watching. Eventually, Richard said, "We can't live like this. We're going to Margaret's for a while. New place, more security, same support system." We packed slowly, trying not to scare Elizabeth, calling it a little trip. The morning we were leaving was bright and calm. Suitcases in the trunk, Elizabeth strapped in the back seat, Rabbit in her lap. Then we heard tires screech. A black car pulled up hard. Victoria got out. She wasn't polished anymore. Messy hair, smudged makeup, wild eyes. She grabbed the gate and shouted, "Richard, we need to talk. You're violating the restraining order," he said, standing between her and us. "Leave now. You can't just throw me away." she yelled. "After everything I did for you, you're really choosing that brat over me." Every time he said, "For the rest of my life, I choose my daughter." Inside the car, I felt Elizabeth's hand clamp on my arm. "This is all that Maid's fault," Victoria screamed. "And that social worker, and that weak little girl who cries all the time. I made you strong." "You hurt my child," he said. "We are done." Something in her voice changed. "If I can't have this family," she said quietly, "then nobody gets to be happy." Her hand went into her bag. "Victoria, don't," Richard yelled. She pulled out a heavy glass bottle. For a second, I thought she'd throw it at him. Instead, her eyes flicked past him to the car, to the little head just visible in the back. I yanked the back door open. "Elizabeth, get down," I shouted, trying to shield her. The bottle flew. It hit the side of Elizabeth's head with a sickening crack. Glass exploded. She collapsed out of the seat onto the driveway. 1 second, she was a terrified little girl holding my arm. The next, she was lying still on the stone blood spreading in her hair. The rest was sirens shouting, police tackling Victoria neighbors, staring an ambulance racing to the hospital. Doctors said the words nobody wants to hear. Skull fracture, brain swelling, coma. We spent days at her bedside talking to her, holding her hand, praying to a God I wasn't even sure I believed in. On the 5th day, her fingers moved in mine. Her eyes finally opened. The first word out of her mouth was Daddy. Later, when she was home and healing, she told me, "It was dark, but I could hear you and Daddy. Your voices were like little lights. I just followed them back." Victoria got 10 years in prison. Some people say it's too much. Some say it's nothing compared to what she did. Richard changed his life. Therapy, time off, actual parenting. He signed papers naming me as Elizabeth's guardian if anything ever happens to him. Elizabeth still has scars outside and inside, but she smiles now. She draws castles again, this time with all 3 of us in the windows. So that's how a maid with no fancy title ended up being the one person who refused to stay in her place while everyone else looked the other way. That's how I went from jealous troublemaker to the woman a little girl grabbed for when her world fell apart. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think I was right to go to Child Protective Services? Would you have kept trying to handle it privately? Do you think 10 years is enough for what Victoria did? Too much, not enough. Did the system work here? Because it works, or because we got lucky with one teacher and one social worker who actually cared? And what about Richard? Is he unforgivable for what he didn't see, or human for finally facing the truth and changing? If you were, Elizabeth, would you forgive him? I don't have simple answers. I just know that emotional abuse is real, even when there are no bruises in the photos. Kids don't usually lie about being scared to go home. And the people in the background, maids, nannies, teachers, they see more than anyone realizes. When they finally say, "Something is wrong," maybe we should listen before someone ends up in a hospital bed. If this story hits something in, you don't just click away. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Do you think we handled it right? Do you think the sentence was fair? Have you ever spoken up or stayed quiet in a situation like this? Be honest, agree, disagree, argue, share your own story if you feel safe, and if you think more people need to be reminded that just the maid might be the only one telling the truth. Hit like, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe if you want more real stories that don't skip the hard parts. Because in the end, sometimes the only thing standing between a child and a monster is one tired person who refuses to stay in their place.